Welcome to the Audiobook Lovin Series, a month-long event celebrating the authors and narrators that bring romance stories to life. Listen along as Viviana, Enchantress of Books, interviews your favorite writers and voices, share special guest posts, and stay tuned for some special information at the conclusion of the episode.
Hi, everyone. Today, I have the pleasure of chatting with guest and narrator Rob Brinkmann, also known in romance as Robert Hatchet. Welcome to the Audiobook Lovin Series, Rob. How are you doing today?
I am doing great. I'm pumped to be here. I'm pumped to chat. And as I told you a minute ago, I was a fan of your podcast, and when you reached out, I was so tickled. I was like, "Oh, cool! I get to be on this now. I'm thrilled. I'm happy to
Yeah,
be here."
I was tickled and like, oh my God, he listens. And 8 years later, I'm still like, people actually listen. Okay, good. This is good. I can continue doing it then.
You're
Yay.
doing it. You're doing the good work for us silent listeners out there.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you. Why don't we start by having you tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into audiobooks and narrating, and how long you've been doing it now?
Sure. So my story, I'm an actor, and so I came to New York and went to school at NYU, got my BFA in musical theater, and then just started hitting it hard. And I was performing all around the East Coast for a while, um, and then the pandemic hit. So right before the pandemic, 2019 was a crazy year. I was up in Chatham, New York. I just done Oklahoma as Judd, and I won an award for it. And then I got married 2 weeks later, and then a week after that, I booked Stomp in NYC. And so like my whole life got flipped right at the end of 2019, and I was in Stomp, 7 days a week, and then the pandemic hit, and then it all disappeared. So except for my marriage, which has not disappeared. It's been very happy. Um, so then I was given the chance to like throw myself into books more, uh, because I started in 2019. So I have a really good friend, Sarah Naughton, who's a wonderful narrator. She was my good friend in college, and when we graduated, she's like, "You should do this. You should do audiobooks. You're like, working a million jobs, but like you could make money doing this, and it's performing." I was like, "All right, cool." And so I went into the company that she was working for. I think it was Brick Shop Audio. It's out in Brooklyn. And I'd never done audiobooks before. I was so nervous, and they sent me 3 scripts, and I went in there, and I was like in the booth, like, and there was an engineer, and I was reading. I was like, and then the wind hard, and the storm hard, and then the first, and they're like, "All right, cool, thanks, man. Well, we'll be in touch." And of course, I didn't do any of those books because I had no idea what I was doing. And then I went home. I was like, "All right, that was a train wreck, but now I'm interested in this." So I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna do some research," and I found ACX, and I just I sat down one day. I was like, "All right, I'm gonna audition for as many of these as I can handle." And I like sent out 20 auditions, and I booked like a few of them. And so I did my first book on my desk in my apartment with a little Yeti, a little blue Yeti, like the classic, in a little like a tub, a little plastic tub with some, foam inside of it. And of course, like I sounded like this, but I was like, "Oh, I sound great. This is a great, I did it. I made my booth." And this book was like, I don't know, 3 hours long. It's like a meditation book. And I probably spent, I don't know, 30 or 40 hours on it because I did the book, and then I listened to it all back in like real time and did the corrections, and then send it through and listen to it again. And after that, I was like, "Great. I can't ever do that again. We got to get better at this process." And so then I moved into my closet for a few more books, and then I started stealing doors off of the street in New York City to build my booth. And that's kind of what I did over the pandemic. As Stomp sort of left the table and I had this space to like truly dive into this industry, I put a little bit more effort into building my booth out, which I truly was doors that I was finding on the street. I would bring them in one at a time and wrap them in some moving blankets, and slowly I had one wall, then I had 2 walls, then I had a roof, and then I had like a little 3x5 booth, which I used all the way up until a couple months ago when I got my spanking new vocal booth. But but yeah, so then I dove in deep into the pandemic, and like I went to my first 8-pack, and I watched a billion webinars, and then I started a TikTok in January, and then my stuff blew up. I was I was always booked out maybe 1 or 2 books in advance, and we have like big plans for our life, and our future, my wife and I, and our little doggy. And I was like, okay, I want to do this. I really want to do this full time because I'm seeing people out there, narrators, who are crushing it, and this is their full time job. And so that has been my goal starting the beginning of this year. And after a month of like hitting the TikTok, like direct marketing, I'm like booked through August. I'm like truly full time on this right now. And I couldn't be happier. It's like, it's wonderful. Everything about this industry is wonderful. Coming from theater and the community, the beautiful community that is theater in New York City, um, there's still the sort of competitive edge to it. But with audiobooks, it's like there's such a wealth of jobs out there, and jobs that fit so many different voices and different cadences and characters and people, and there's just like everyone's happy to welcome you. And like I've had narrators be like, "Oh, I'm so busy. Can you take this book?" Like, "Hey, like this is." I'm like,
Yeah.
what is this? What? I'm used to like peacocking in the front of a dance call,
Yeah.
or I'm like, wait, everyone loves each other here.
We
This is really this
share,
is
we
nice.
cross
We share.
promote.
Oh my goodness. Wait, you want me to do a book with you? Oh my gosh, thank you.
Well, see, I discovered you via TikTok. So I was
Yeah.
following some narrators and things like that. And I think it was a part of my feed, and I'm not at my desk. I'm organizing, rearranging my office. And then I hear you and I'm going, oh, hello, sir. Run to the desk and I'm like, who's this? Write that name down, start doing
Oh
some
God.
research and everything. And then I'm like, yeah, TikTok. And I'm like, okay. And there's a couple of videos where it's, you know, some funny stuff, some other things that you've been recording, that it's like a live recording and everything. And I'm like, oh yeah, this one's gonna go places.
I'm so glad. It's really fun. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I wouldn't have joined TikTok if I had not like had the impotence to do it as a business sort of move. Because you know, I'm you know, I'm a millennial. I have social media, but it's not something that I like threw myself into ever.
Mm-hmm.
But I saw, I'm like, oh, these like people, you know, like Natalie Naudus is like, you know, the founding father of audiobook narrator. I was on TikTok, and or not the founding matriarch of
Yeah.
the TikTok narrators, and I was like, oh, I don't have to like do the bits. I don't have to do the like dances, because I was like, because
Oh,
when you
yeah.
start TikTok, you're like, oh my god, this is overwhelming. I feel like I'm 900 years old. There's children who have millions of followers. What am I doing here? And then I'm like, oh, I'm doing stupid shit in my booth constantly anyway. And like, it seems like this is an enjoyable content for some people out there. So I try to like clock moments when I'm doing something that I habitually do, like sucking on a lemon to get mouth sounds out. And I giggle at myself, and I'm like, oh, I'm giggling at myself. I don't know, someone might giggle at this. And then I spend 45 minutes on making a new TikTok.
And you go through how many? Let me know. I love your TikToks, and and you're one of those that, as far as the marketing stuff, like I know that I'm like I have a TikTok, but I am not anywhere near your following, because
No.
I'm not the girl in front of the camera, and so I'm trying to still find my niche, you know, on TikTok, because I don't do frontward camera work. I'm the one that does the videos and all this other stuff and does audio. And the fact that you use some of the stuff that you've done, I'm like, hey, okay, so I wonder if I could do that, but if you remove the video, how would that work? So, you know, you've been planting some ideas.
I bet you could do, there's all these like avatar things that are coming out.
Yeah.
Like I bet you could like have your avatar, and that's like,
Ooh, yeah.
that's it. Oh, that'd be cool. I'd watch that. I'd like those videos.
Thanks. Yeah, but you've done some like stitches and stuff like that. And for those that are not on TikTok, stitches is basically when you get half the audio of the other person and you mix your stuff in there. We'll put some samples on the landing page so you can see them.
Duets.
Yeah, and duets too as well. And some funny ones where I love it, where the guy comes in, goes, so here's a script. Can you be an audiobook narrator? And then you all are doing it. And I'm like, first of all, we already know he can do this. It becomes the, how is he going to do this, which is now the journey.
It is a journey, that is for sure.
And then yeah, that's for sure. You were named Book Riot's one of the top 10 list of narrators to follow on TikTok,
which is crazy, because I'm up there with absolute legends. I'm literally like I'm above Travis Baldry, who literally I'm like trying to model my career after. I'm like, this is nuts. This is like I was very flattered by that.
I was happy to see you as more of a newcomer in the audiobook world.
Yeah, I'm a
world.
baby. I'm a wee
Yeah.
little tiny little baby in this industry.
Yeah, but I love seeing the new faces and stuff like that. I love seeing the diversity in the voices, and who's up there too, because sometimes book world can get a little bit stagnant and using the same narrators over and over and over again, because they're good. It's not taking
Yeah.
anything away from them. But I'm also like, I like my variety. So
Yeah, that's fair. I'm finding that with the books I listen to, because I listen to a lot of fantasy books, so I'm like I get locked and loaded to like a 40-hour book, and I'm like, all right, this is the next 2 months for me. But then I'm like, all right, I need to diversify my listening here. I gotta reach out there and gotta hear some other voices. So I get that, wanting to diversify,
yeah.
get some more fruit in the cornucopia, as it were.
Yeah, and just mix it up a bit and make a little different fruit salad of sorts.
Yeah, a little fruit
Yeah.
salad.
But I
Let's
was
little
thrilled for you. I was like scrolling through. Oh my God.
I'm lucky because you just don't know what's gonna land on TikTok. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily trying to get famous. I'm just trying to like make connections and get some work out of it, and like support other authors and narrators. And like, the one video that popped for me was just reading chapter one in different like genre styles. And I got another TikTok friend of mine, Jillian. Her video that popped was like her cat killed like a mouse in her kitchen, and there was blood all over her floor. And she's like, "What's this blood?" And it's like got 1 million views. And we're both laughing. We're like, we don't know what the hell we're doing, but I guess sometimes it just
It's the
works.
funniest thing. Yes, the out of nowhere something will pop in. And with TikTok, you have two options. You can see as the feed as those that are you're following, or those that are recommended. And the
Yeah.
recommendation is based on what you like and stuff like that from that algorithm. And today, before our talk, I was like, okay, let's see what Rob's up to. And it's the one where the author is looking for stock images site,
Oh
and
my
finding the
gosh.
quote unquote sexy images, which as a cover designer as well, that is a freaking rabbit hole that I'm like, whoever thought that was sexy, I'm like, you're just trying to get hits, baby. It's okay.
I didn't know that this is what's fun for me as a narrator, is I'm seeing what authors go through when they are publishing and self-publishing. And it really is the like cover art,
Yeah.
sexy man cover art gambit is a really funny rabbit hole.
It's hilarious. And in her videos, I have died laughing because
She's
I
amazing.
live this. And then I sent them to some of my friends that are the listener side. So it's like you get the listener's perspective of the funny, and then you get as the industry workers, as myself. That does not sound right. Anyways,
Yeah.
those that
Everyone's
do
gotta
graphic
work. Everyone's
artwork.
gotta
Yeah,
work.
exactly. That's fine. I'm not shaming. I'm just saying. And then you as a narrator, you added your own flair to it, where you gave us how these images, these the pirate, the guy with the egg, how they would sound, and you just added that spin to it, which I was like, freaking brilliant. I was like, I love that.
Oh, I'm glad you enjoyed it. We just like, I'm starting to realize like, oh, we all everyone in this industry spends so much time by themselves at their computer doing their stuff, and like we're all doing like the same stuff just in different ways, but we all like have the same psychosis that develops because of it. And like,
Absolutely.
there's I have some authors who send me like some authors. I love working with indie authors so much because it's like, I my bread and butter is theater, and like, it's such a collaborative process. When you're working on someone's passion project, especially with theater, like they're putting their money into this, they're paying for the space, they've been working on this script for years, and like when I get to work with an indie author directly, we get to chat about the characters. I've had some people send me like, Pinterest boards for their characters and like references, and then, like I think that's so much fun. It's like it's sometimes it's a little bit more pressure because you then have more of a specific character to deliver.
Yeah.
Um, but I think it's still really fun to get to like get inside their head a little bit.
Part of that prepping process that you guys have to go through when it comes down to narrating is figuring out what the characters are going to sound like,
Yeah.
what the accents they are, because heaven forbid that you're in chapter 7 and that's when you realize that he has the Russian accent.
Oh yeah, that's why we prep, and I learned that
Yes.
the hard way, as so many narrators have. I
Yes.
was I was doing some romance, and then like I was like, oh, okay, so I'm a little overwhelmed right now. Like I read like a third of the book. I was like, I can do this. It'll be fine. And I get to the end of the book, and it's like he said with his voluptuous French accent, and I was like, fuck. So never again have I not read the full book. the training wheel lessons of a young narrator.
Yes.
And also, you get to a point also, I was, that was like a few books in, and I was like, wow, I'm treating this differently than acting and performing, but it's not any different. Like, I need to know this story, I need to know this arc, so that I can thread these little Easter eggs in, these little character moments where they're developing their conflict, they're developing their resolution in the beginning of this book, and I need to know that so I can thread it in. And also, when Jürgen is actually German, I gotta know that.
Yeah. So I love the fact that authors are now at a point where they're realizing, yes, I want to do audio, and then what they can do to help finalize what that final package is going to look like for the listeners, by giving you guys ideas of like, hey, he sounds like this, or he sounds like the guy from Brad Pitt in this movie, but with that accent from that other movie.
Yeah, my favorite kind of like a prep sheet from an author is like, this character, like, give me an age, give me like a style, like a visual, and then like, oh, the vibe of this character, like this guy is like, this guy's always eating ice cream, but angry at everyone because of it, and he's lonely, but he just wants to be loved. I was like, yep, I hear that. Yeah, I can do that. But yeah, it's so different. I do a lot of work in sci-fi and fantasy as well, and those books can sometimes have so many characters. I just finished book 5. We're on book 6 of the Starsea collection, The Mages of Starsea, with this author Kyle West. It's one of my favorite books. We've like been in this together since the beginning of this series, and these characters, I mean, there's got to be over like 150 characters at this point that I have cataloged, and like book 5 brought a whole bunch of people back from the first couple books, and it was like some of my favorite characters. I was emailing him. I was like, "Oh man, they're back." He's like, "I know." So that's the kind of like vibe I like when I can email an author about being so stoked about what's happening in the book.
Yeah, but especially when that first character in book 1 that you're like, oh, okay, it's just he only has 4 or 5 lines, so I'm just gonna give him like this groovy dude, kind of or fill in the blank as far as like a gruff sounding kind of thing, because there may be an elf or something or whatever, and then he's the lead in book 7, and you're going, oh, how am I going to stay with this?
Exactly. I'm encountering this with the Starsea collection, and in the book, I just finished a book with a lot of like, I'm calling them Earth accents, because Earth accents are like Ireland, England, like they're geographical accents. But when you get into fantasy and sci-fi, it's like otherworldly accents, and that's what I like the best, because then I can pick and choose and make my own amalgamations of things. But this one character, this girl, had like, the description was like she had this like melodic lilt to her, and I was like, ooh, space Irish. And so I gave her this lilt, and by the end of the book I was like, ooh, that was a lot of work. And then she just came back. I was like, all right, let's lock this down. I'm gonna hit this spell. I was like listening to Colin Farrell every day before my recording session, just getting the Irish in my brain. But I learned that from Travis Baldry. He was doing a webinar once, and he was like, I clock every single voice. He's like, even if it's like guard number 5 who just goes, who goes there? He'll undoubtedly come back, like you said, in book 5 as like, the evil villain, the mastermind.
Yes, absolutely. And romance authors love to do that, especially when they do the following. It's part of the so-and-so series, but they're all technically really standalones, and you can read them in any order.
The romance erotica multiverse.
Yes. The bartender in the entire series that only said 1 or 2 lines in the entire 7 books, all of a sudden now has the lead.
That's right. Because you fall in love with these characters.
Oh yeah, you're curious.
Narrators fall in love. Exactly. And especially in these small town romances where there's like 8 people, there's like the bartender, the market guy, the like hot lumber guy.
Yeah. The main staples. Yeah, absolutely.
It's that classic Chekhov phrase, if you introduce a gun in Act 1, it's got to fire in Act 2.
Yep, that is true. Absolutely. And it's interesting how that also fires, because sometimes it's interwoven and it goes through a couple of more books, and not until, especially the longer ones. And I think it even happens in sci-fi and fantasy, where, like you were saying, they've been the bartender this entire time, but they end up being the bad guy in book 17, and you're going, fucking A. Yeah, that's who it was. Bitch. Damn it.
Gary, I loved you, Gary.
Yeah.
I trusted you, Gary.
Well, there was one romance author, Donna Grant, I am speaking about you, and who the whole series, and then there are like 17 books so far at this point, where we were all
Wow.
trying to figure out who was her mystery dragon lover, and because there
Ah.
were some conversations here and there, and she was so sad, but at the same time feisty, and then she was always having this bickering, bantering kind of like, "Are you sure it's not him?" And we never knew, and we were trying to figure. Some of us even came up with a spreadsheet of like, okay, who has been featured, who has not, and we're trying to figure this out. Long story short, we were right in who it was, but the way that she twisted it and moved it around and stuff, and we're like, "You suck. I love you."
She got you though. That's brilliant.
Yes.
That's planning. What I have
Yes.
so much respect for authors and the amount of planning that goes into a series. I've chatted with some authors who are like, I know how book 10 is going to end. And then it's working backwards from that. I'm like, I know what I'm gonna have for lunch tomorrow. I'm like, that's like, I respect you
Tom-
tremendously.
Tomorrow, later today.
Yeah,
No
it's like,
clue.
what's in the fridge, man? But
Let's just order
that's cool.
out.
That's the brilliance. It's like, I look at a building, I'm like, I don't know how. And engineering to me is like alchemy. It's like, I don't know how you can know that a building's not going to fall down.
I
And
know,
writing
right?
like a giant series, I respect in the same way.
Yeah, and then us as listeners were at all at you guys of keeping the voices straight, having the accents, especially when all 7 females or 7 males are in the same room and they all have different fill in the blanks, cadence, accents, and all this stuff. And you're going blah blah blah. I'm like, damn. I wonder how
Yeah.
many stop and go and cut. This happened.
There's this anytime I was doing this this mystery, this like murder mystery, and it's like there's always that scene towards the end where it's a dinner party and every character from the whole damn book is in the dinner party and it's a big whodunit moment and it's like, sweet Jesus. I got everything, got all the little like all my sound bites down. I'm going around and I feel like a hacker. I'm just like my eyes are like rolled back in the back of my head and I'm just rattling off these different accents.
You mentioned the accents as far as, and I love the description of did you say space, like spacey,
Space Irish.
space Irish. We love accents as far as the romance community goes, and I
Really?
think yes, oh my god, hello, it's they will be different. We will classify the narrators as, oh, my favorite is like Irish Rob or Scottish this,
Oh.
and then on top, I mean, then there's other categories when we go into like different tropes and stuff, like, well, yeah, we really like billionaire so and so, or growly Jason Clark and stuff like that.
That's
So
right.
yeah, we do. I gotta immerse you more into romance, babe, but we'll get there.
Yeah, I know. That's right. I'm so literally I'm such a baby. I'm actually about to redo my first romance series. The Wild Hearts of Storm Harbor romance with my first romance novels with Dakota Davies. And it was her first book putting into audio, her first romance book putting into audio. And the first book we did, I was the only narrator, so I did male and female point of view.
Oh my
And so
goodness.
I remember getting to like minute 45 of female perspective, female orgasm. I was like, cool. All right. A, I've got some ideas about how to change my life. And B, this is wild. It's, there's a couple more books in the series, and we got a great narrator, Kelly Lindsay, rocks on there for the second book. But she reached out to me. This was a couple years ago, these books, and she reached out to me recently. She's like, "Hey, how do you feel about like redoing the series?" She's like, "I've like grown as an author, and I think I want to get some like dual. I think at this point we want to do a dual narration, and so this is like a cool, unique." Opportunity where we're going to redo the series with some more narrators and with some edits. And so she's going to also make it a multiverse. She's going to connect these characters. So
Nice.
I'm pumped for that. And we both laughed. We're like, these were our baby books. These were our first our first ones out there.
Yeah, romance is known for the variety of the genres and the subgenres, because romance is the genre, and then underneath it's almost like an umbrella term. It's
Yeah.
all the subgenres in paranormal, fantasy, romantic suspense, so on and so forth. And the amount of stuff that people have learned from wanting to travel, wanting to learn how new a recipe of a certain delicacy or anything,
Yeah.
or that they realize they have a kink, is amazing.
Exactly.
And
The
that's
safest way to find your kinks is through books.
absolutely. It's like, hey, and then people I've known have highlighted certain sections and then given it to their partner and say, learn, memorize tonight.
That's right. My wife knows if I come out of my booth with that look in my eyes, she's like, "Oh God, what did you just read?" It's 3:00. I'm working.
Later, babe. I have a
Later.
headache.
And now I have a couple good friends
Mhm.
in real life who are narrators, and they also have romance pseudonyms, and we are now doing books together. And so when we all get together, we're like, "Hey, remember that section? Remember that section?" Cheers.
Yeah. Yeah, but again, it's something that, listeners enjoy, and the authors are getting more wise to it, and they're changing the POV of certain activities for the gentlemen. So the listeners, where the majority cis female, are kind of like hearing what you guys as the male narrators, as the character, and inserting themselves. But the when there's an accent, it's like even more intensified.
Yeah.
Is there a favorite accent that you love to perform?
I've got a couple. I really like to do Scottish. I love to do a Scottish accent. I love, I just love Scottish people. I love listening to them. And so if I get a good dwarf, like I love a good dwarf character. That's fantastic. But then I just did Detective Docherty and the Demon's Tears. This like fun little paranormal mystery. It's like kooky British older fellow. And then there's like this. He's the vampire like paranormal detective. And then his niece who falls in love with this like Scottish elf. And like, I was like, oh shit, this is a fun accent to do. So I listened to a lot of Gerard Butler for a little while. And he's definitely, he's one of my favorite characters, this guy. So yeah, Scottish is one of my faves.
How about the hardest for you to perform?
Oh, the hardest. What's the hardest accent to perform? You know what it is? It's trippy for me as a man to put accents into the female characters, because I internalize these accents as like, favorite characters that I've seen on, in films or in books that I've put in my head. And so like, to do a Scottish woman, like in my brain, I'm like, hey, that's Scottish, it's good. And so I do this Scottish woman. She's just like, I'm like, oh, why am I always doing like the fantasy barmaid version of this? It's not, it's like, so it's been tricky for for like a female ingenue, like a younger ingenue Scottish girl, to find like the delicate parts of that accent. That's where the fun work is for me, because I really like accents. I was, in college we got trained in the International Phonetics Alphabet as the means to understand and build accents. So I have like scan sheets for different accents of like, these are the diphthongs, these are the triphthongs, these are the medial consonants, and all these. You can get really into it, because if I'm booked for a film and I have to do an accent, it's like I need to do that accent very, very well, or it's going to be ripped apart. I will say that I've noticed, and this is perhaps a preference thing, but I've in listening to audiobooks, I've gone full tilt accents, and I've also done like partial accents, because I found it can be a little distracting. Like, if you have a really intense accent, and I was listening back to, I think it was a Russian character in one of these romance books, and I gave him a really thick, like very thick classic Eastern European Northern Russian accent. And I was like, oh, this accent is spot on. And listened back to it, I was like, oh man, this is pretty distracting actually. And so I'm finding, at least for me and my style, how I can feather in these accents in a way that's not distracting. But it's tough, it's like, it's whatever my preference is, because I'm here and the author will let me know if it's too much. But what about you? What's your preference with accent wise?
Oh, I like it when it's enough that I can tell that it's an Irish or Scottish or this or that, because it does get a little bit distracting.
Mhm.
And again, it's one of those where I'm like, what was that word? Because of the accent being coming or whatever.
Yeah.
Or also how hard sometimes it is to maintain. Endurance is a big thing,
Yeah.
and consistency. And the other thing too is having, when it's dual narration, ensuring that both narrators are doing such accents.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because there's
That's tough.
nothing worse when you're talking, the character is talking, and then there's this accent, and then the next chapter the perspective is like this with no accent. I'm like, well, wait a minute. Y'all didn't talk to each other, did you?
Yeah, yeah, and it's tough, like, especially if, with timelines, like, sometimes you're doing a book, like, a month before the other narrator, and it's
Yeah.
like, "Okay, can you send me samples for this?" And we just like, "Okay, I'm not there with my prep yet, but let's talk about what their accents are going to be. Here's a sample of my voice for the main character, but, send me if you're gonna go." I remember I sent a narrator once, I was like, "You can choose what you want for these 3 characters, just please don't make them Australian or this or that." It's like, otherwise I should be okay.
Yeah, there's just some accents that you're going, I just need a slight hint to it. And other ones I'm like, give it to me more. But you never want to get
Yeah.
it into a caricature where you're thinking Scotty from Star Trek, or the Lucky Pepper, for Lucky Charms Irish, or even French for, Pepe Le
I
Pew.
like Lucky Pepper, the classic children's cereal, Lucky Peppers. Lucky, you really want to fuck your kids up? You want to make them not eat cereal? Put a bunch of jalapenos in that.
Yeah. Fast way to get them not to eat that, the sugar sweet ones.
Yeah.
The Lucky Charms. But again,
Yeah.
it's all, at the end of the day, it's really up to the individual listeners. There have been reviews where one review says it was too much, others say it's not enough, and then they'll write almost like the Goldilocks bears. And there's been times where it's happened to two different narrators, and the review said, oh, his Irish accent wasn't there enough or good at all. And I'm like, the man is actually Irish. He still has his accent, and the exact same thing, but it was a British narrator, and they're like, his British sucks. That's not how we sound. And I'm going, he's actually born and raised there, and he still has it. Yeah, so it's all funny. I mean,
well, it's because of what our perception,
yes,
what our perception of what that accent sounds like, is what that perception is.
Absolutely.
I was doing a book once. It was a Scottish girl. This is this character, and you find out that the Scottish accent is put upon by this character, right? She's not actually Scottish, and you find that out later on in the book. So it's like a fake Scottish accent, and so the author was like, have this girl be Scottish, but have it not be perfect. And I'm like, it's tough, because then you get railed on for having a shitty British accent. So I was like, okay, I'm comfortable with the way this is sounding. And of course, there's a review that's like, this is the worst Scottish accent. What was that Scottish accent? I'm like, you clearly didn't finish the book, bro.
Yep.
But also, it's like, as far as reviews go, again, I'm so young in this industry, I don't really have a plethora of reviews. But at least for theater, and what I've learned is it's everyone has their preference, and especially with audiobooks, it's like, man, there's some narrators that everyone loves, which for me is their cadence doesn't put me in the place where I like to be when I'm listening to books. And I have narrators that I really like that other people are like, oh, I can't really do that style. And that, when I had that aha moment, it's a big sort of relief as a narrator to be like, okay, all right, so I'm going to get a mix of reviews, and that's okay, because the silent majority who doesn't do a review that means that they didn't have anything bad to say about it, that it was enjoyable to them. I was coaching with Andy Arndt, and she's like, the best thing you can do is get out of the way of the story. She's like, the best review you can get doesn't mention you, because that means they enjoyed the story that much,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's an ongoing conversation when it comes down to reviewing audiobooks, because the authors want to know what the listeners thought of the narrator to see if they hire them again or not. And
oh, well, I'll tell you, I do love hearing it. I was told not to want it, but we all want it. We all want validation.
Yeah. And also, as a listener, we like to well, who narrated it and how was he? Because there's some individuals that will buy the book solely because of the narrator. And so we've discovered a bunch of new authors that way as well, and then vice versa, where we love the author, and then well, who's the narrator? So it's a really ongoing debate on how, whether the narrator should be listed, and stuff like that. Should we not? And I'm like, listen, at the end of the day, it's about the story. So your first part of the review should always be about the story, and then a second part of it should be the narrator's performance, and then that's it. And then sharing that as well. But yeah, it's important to kind of go with both, I think, just it gives people understanding of what's out there. But I think Andy's
the product. The product is the audio.
Exactly. And I think Andy is also right there as far as not wanting to be part of it, is that you don't want it to be that they listen to it only because you were narrating it.
Yeah.
It's more,
and
that's where the story lies.
She has really great, the way that she is educating narrators that I've seen in a lot of the webinars she's done is all about she really pushes self-care for narrators.
Yes.
And so I took that note as okay, this is actually the best for a mental state as a narrator, not need that validation. Of course, we all want it, but to have that little space there.
Yeah. Well, it's like those moments of when you're, going on Instagram and you're doing something and you see that you were tagged on something and it was like, oh, and I love this performance. You're like, yes. Those moments like that.
Absolutely.
But you're not actively looking for that, hashtag or that, handle to come up and say, where's my stuff?
No.
So that's different.
No.
Yeah.
But honestly, I've been narrating live on TikTok when the author allows it. And it's been nice to have some feedback. Granted, it's like, it's social media, so it's anybody
Everybody's
can
an
be on there.
expert.
You can do anything.
And
And
everybody's an
so like
expert.
yeah, yeah, and like, but also like I know what I'm doing. I'm on TikTok. I'm opening myself to that audience. But most of the time, like most of the people who are on there are very complimentary, or at least who are actual audiobook. They love audiobooks, and so they have they have feedback where like, oh my god, I love that part. We're laughing at a joke that a character made. The moments that really help me are if like there's a funny part and like they write like an LOL or a laugh face. I'm like, okay, great, that joke landed, which means like I'm putting the cadence of this character correct. There's always someone who's going to talk about the accents, like, or they want this character to sound more like this, and you just kind of smile and nod and go, all right, cool, thanks for the input. We're on book 5, so we can't really do a lot of changing, but I appreciate your presence. Appreciate the presence.
Yep,
But that also
absolutely.
is like, it's also helpful for me to go back and go, okay, this was a perspective that somebody had. Like, let me like take a step back from this once the project's done, and like listen to all my characters and check in with everything, because
Yeah,
at the end of the day,
absolutely.
everyone's opinion is completely valid, because everyone is out there buying audiobooks. Everyone is out there buying audiobooks. Hopefully.
Oh yeah, no, it's being devoured. And especially when unpopular opinion or unpopular, depending on who you're listening to, I don't agree with speeding it up, the narration, but many do, and that's
Yes.
how many can do 7 or 8 books a week.
Oh wow, that's
Oh,
crazy.
it's nuts.
Like,
I'm like,
listen
but
to
you're
7 or 8
speeding it
books.
up, and I'm like, don't these sound like chick books?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's as like as a performer, it's like, oh wow, that's insane to think about, because I'm like, how would that, like, how if somebody was watching me in a play, how that would like translate if somebody sped up to
Oh my
1.5. I was like,
god.
totally
Sorry, I just got a
destroy.
visual.
Like, oh my god, can you imagine doing 42nd Street at 1.5 time? You got 20 ankle breaks.
Yep.
But like I also I'm like, the more and more I'm living in this industry, I'm realizing people use this product for many different purposes. Some people, like, they have like, issues paying attention, and like to focus on the work that they have to do, they just want like a cacophony of sound, and they want just to hear, they want like just a buzz in the background, and like putting it on a little bit faster makes it intelligible, but also just less intelligible enough that it's not going to grab them from their work. And I like I someone told me that, I was like, oh wow,
Yeah,
okay,
that's true. Yeah.
sure. If that works for you, great. You have a subscription to Audible or wherever you're listening to audiobooks, like you're supporting the industry, like cool. I tried it. I was like, what does this sound like? And I was like, I was like, oh my god, no. It
Well,
was crazy. I was like, whew.
I mean, the perfect example is, I think for me too, is because I grew up with VHS. And when you were forwarding a scene in the movie or rewinding, you didn't just get the clip, clip, clip like you do now when you're streaming. You get that, and then you see the character moving or the actors moving back and forth. And so that's for me where I'm like, oh, no, 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 from
Yeah.
that perspective. But I do understand too sometimes that the narrators, you guys have certain cadences, and
Yes, there are
depending on the
slower
genre,
narrators.
yep.
Yeah.
And the
And
genre
it's
sometimes affects that as well. So
Yeah, and it was tough. I'm like, I feel like this year, where I'm at right now, I'm starting to really come into my cadence. I'm like 45 books deep, and now I'm like, okay, I really think I have figured out like what my sound, what I want it to be, um, which seems crazy. But in the beginning, like, listening to all the different audiobooks, and the cadences are wildly different, and it's wildly different from the different genres. You have like some fantasy where you're really living in a full energy, and the characters are a little bit more over the top, and then you have like your dropped in romances, which are like, your mouth is like a half a centimeter away from the mic, and it's like it's extremely intimate, and like wrapping my head around as an actor, like, okay, this is this means that my style has got to adapt to the genre, and like doing the research to learn, okay, so what's the style that's like typically appreciated in this genre, and that's not even always consistent. So it's terrifying, but also relieving in the fact of like, okay, well, I'm just gonna do me, and somebody will like it eventually, or I'll morph into what feels right eventually, because there's and the imposter syndrome term is thrown around so much, for us, because you're like, we're listening to so many narrators and loving them, and then trying to translate that into the books we're doing, and sometimes it just doesn't. You can't. They're not things you can compare side by side. So you just you throw the pasta on the cabinet and you see if it sticks.
And again, there's something for everybody. There's individuals that are like diehard fans of some one narrator, and I'm like, but why? And then
exactly. Yeah,
and then there's
totally.
others that will be like, that I'll say, and they're like, I've never heard of him, and then I go, how? So there's just, because everything is growing and trending and moving into that motion of upward, that there's so many more new things coming up, and people that are like, oh yeah, I just discovered this one, so I'm now doing all the backlisted books, and I'm like, okay, good to know. Just realized that he himself has admitted that was not his best, because it was book one.
Yes, and I have those too. And again, I'm like,
Everybody does.
Dakota
Everybody
reached
does.
out. She's like, we're gonna redo these books. I was like, cool.
Oh, thank
God. Cool. Because they're fun. They're like they're wildly fun. They're salaciously erotic and wonderful.
Yeah.
But I've grown, and in 2 years, I've grown completely as a narrator. As from something I was doing one book every 6 months as a side thing to like, I'm digesting a full-time load of work.
Yeah, which is awesome, by the way. Completely awesome.
Oh, thank you. I'm so grateful for the way that this has blossomed in this way, and I can't wait to keep moving forward with it.
Yeah. So with 45 books in, plus some here and there between this publishing and when we're talking,
Yes.
is there a genre that you have yet to narrate in that you're like, ooh, when I get that one, that's like it?
Yeah. So, I mean, I feel very lucky that I am narrating in genres that I really love. Sci-fi and I'm a nerd. Dungeons and Dragons I'm like outside of this work. I love it. So fantasy and sci-fi is my bread and butter, and I've been working a lot in young adult sci-fi and fantasy, which I didn't know was going to be so rewarding. 'Cause some of the adult fantasy and sci-fi can be like really really intense and gruesome and extremely dark, and the young adult aspect of it. Before I started narrating, I didn't realize that young adult didn't just mean kids, it just means like it's that sort of age where a character is finding themselves and coming into the human that they are going to be. It's just a developmental piece. And so I'm doing a lot of work in that sort of genre, and I'm happy about it, but I want to break into lit RPG. I think that would be extremely fun. There's this it's like a gaming fantasy where it's like the mechanics of the game are spoken. It's like as if your point of view is inside a sort of gamified fantasy world. So it's like there's quests and there's like items and all these little trinkets and stuff that are spoken aloud as if this character is like seeing pop-ups. And that's I think would translate to the little nerd in me would really enjoy that enjoy that genre.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's one that's
Okay.
becoming more and more popular within audiobooks, the lit RPG.
Yeah, because the community, the gaming community, I think is really is a massive, but I don't think ever had like their place in the audiobook world until this genre came out, because people who grew up in these worlds, in these game worlds, a lot of introverted people, a lot of people like have nostalgia really deeply seated in these mechanics, and just seeing the mechanics like brings out this safe space feeling in them. And I think that is like the beauty about this genre, which is, can be tossed aside as like, this is a video game and audiobooks. It actually is like, it's a safe space for a lot of people who use video games as an escape as their childhood. Again, the genres mean so much to different people. And I'm pumped to eventually, find my way walking into those books.
Yeah. And I think also too is because we tend to follow the narrators. A lot of the narrators do video games and animations. And I know people that have gotten into anime never once wanting to do that. I mean, they would not touch with a 10-foot pole until they realize that one of their favorite narrators is not this character and they're voicing them as a dub. And so people will have picked up things that are nowhere near their comfort zone because of a narrator, and they've started playing video games and then they discover that they like it. So yeah, you guys are almost
That's
like
cool.
an entry drug kind of a thing.
And vice versa,
Yeah.
With I find that way with authors in different genres. And like, as a narrator, I've narrated genres that I wouldn't have necessarily picked up before. And I'm like, sometimes I'll be reading a book and I'll be halfway through prep and I'm like, wow, I'm having a lovely afternoon prepping this book. This is quite lovely. I did a romance with one of my friends, was the other narrator, and it was just like lovely little small town romance. My character was British. We both had dogs, and like there was a baby that came involved in the scene, and I was like, I would have never picked this book up for myself, but reading it, I was like, oh man, this guy owns a bakery. This is lovely. This is quite lovely.
Yep. There's been many of books like that for many of us that we're going, we would never, oh, but Rob's narrating it. Okay, so I'll give it a try. And boom, there we are. I'm like, oh my goodness, yay. And there's just, especially in romance, there's such a gap. I mean, we have Amish romance and a la Hallmark romance, and then we have the down and dirty romance. I mean,
right.
there's so many things in between that you're going, okay, what am I in the mood for? Vampires, Highlanders, Bridgerton Part 2.
Wow,
So,
yeah. I'm excited to really be jumping. My next couple months are chocked full with romance
Oh,
pieces.
fun.
The last like 5 months have been a lot of fantasy, etc. So I'm pumped to get back into this genre now that I'm really feeling like I'm found my voice.
Yeah, and I think also that's part of the appeal, I would think, from a work perspective, is that yes, you're doing technically the exact same thing you're narrating, but the material is different completely every time that you pick up a new book. And then it's a different genres and stuff like that. So even if the characters or the plot might be similar, if you're doing romance, happy ending at the end, we all know this. But it's still different because one day you're a mobster, the next day you're an elf.
Yep, that's right. And for these next 4 days, you're an ex-Marine who's by
Yeah.
himself in a town and falls in love.
Getting dirty looks.
Yes. What's that giant 8'4" beast of a man doing in this small town?
Yeah.
He's falling in love.
That's what he's doing. And thinking about opening up a bakery.
Exactly. Right now I'm listening to Legends and Lattes, which Travis Baldree wrote this fantasy book and narrated it. And it's this literally like it's a high fantasy with low stakes is what he's coined it as. This like female orc is an adventurer. She's done adventuring and she just wants to open up a coffee shop in a small little like village. And she does it. And the first half of the book is just her like finding the guy to like rebuild the inside of this horse stable and then like hiring someone and kind of falling in love with her and like getting a baker. I'm like, man, this is relaxing to listen to.
Yeah.
Talking about fresh cinnamon rolls and then like talking about, elves walking in. I'm like, man, this is my kink. Shit.
Yeah, if your wife listens to this now, she'll know if she hasn't already.
So we just road tripped down to Charleston for a wedding, and I was like, I'm putting this book on, and you're gonna love it.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Okay.
Has she listened to your books, on her own? Because that's always like it's fascinating to me. We've had a lot of narrators that are married and their significant others like, yeah, I don't get it. I mean, and like, that's because you live with him and you hear his voice, but you also know that he might leave his shoes everywhere and that's just not sexy.
Yeah. We're both performers. My wife's a dancer and an arts administrator. So we've both seen each other perform countless times over the 10 years we've been together. And she's not listened to a full book of mine, but she has on occasion been like, hey, can you play me a sample? Play me a nasty, nasty sample. She's like, I want to hear what the thirst is about. And I'll play it for her. She's like, oh shit. She's like, that's what you're saying? I'm like, yeah, that's what I'm saying. And every now and then she'll like come into the booth. She's like, don't mind me. I just want to watch you work for a minute. Cause she's curious about it. It's because it's me, right? Like when I am narrating, like now that I see when I'm doing lives, I can clock what I look like out of the corner of my eye, and like I'm fine. Sometimes my eyes and my eyes and my nose stay completely still, but my eyebrows and my mouth and my hands, I'm doing it right now. You can't see this, but I'm like my hands are moving everywhere. My shoulders are going everywhere, but my face is staying exactly where it is for the mic. I'm not moving that part of me, but every other ounce of my body is embodied into these characters, but it looks like I'm just frowning no matter what because I'm just like the focus. Sometimes I look up and I go, man, I look absolutely nuts recording, but that's I guess what focus is different. Musicians, the guitar face for musicians. Everyone's like focus face is like it's like their artistic O face. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It is what it is. You can't control it.
Yeah, and when it comes down to narrating, romance, there's always that intimacy of not only you being in our earbuds, but also what's going on the page.
Yeah.
And when it's sexy time, it's you're going, curiosity is always, I'm like, okay, that was really, really hot. How much, I mean, especially when you first started, I'm like, were you want to go yeah, that's a lot. Did you ever have that
It's a
reaction, or
lot,
were you
yeah.
like turning red or anything? And now, so if you were,
Oh,
are you now
absolutely.
at
I
this
mean, you
point where you're
gotta
like, you're
get
done?
into it.
Yeah.
It's like, no, it's like, because, well, a lot of times, and at least the past few books I've had, the male point of view is usually significantly less. And so I'll usually get one, if not a significantly less amount of the erotica. And so, like, when I do get a big erotica scene, there have been a couple times where I'm narrating, and then like something happens and I just start I just bust out laughing because it's so crazy. It's like, it's just so the things that happen in these books when you add like aspects that are out of reality that happen to these characters, and then like all of a sudden they're doing this in this place in this way. I'm like, holy shit. But yeah, I like it is, it does rile me up. It does, because it's provocative text. And when these characters, I find when I'm doing a book that I actually can like relate to the characters, when I'm doing a book that like, okay, this character's, I like a book with a little bit of story, even in the romance genre, where you can like, understand the struggles that a character's going to when they are actually getting to release into, a safe person, and with a safe person there's like something really beautiful about that. And so when they have those intimate scenes, sometimes it is really, it's full of feels. Yeah, it is. And it's sometimes that's what takes me off guard, not the crazy sexual acrobatic escapade, but when I'll finish an erotic moment and like I'll recognize like, oh wow, I'm very moved by how like these two people just came together. So that's what I find myself,
Yeah, because I mean, it's always one
falling
of
into.
those interesting points of like when if we're listening or we're reading it out, we're reading it in public and we're going, oh, you got to stop now because can't do this now.
No, you can't stop
Because
now.
some people are like, will get red, others, but I've also been the girl that's known to bust out laughing in cubicle world because of a funny joke in a book. So,
Yeah, yeah.
and they're like, are you listening to? I'm like, yeah, don't worry about it. Because they're like, who
Yeah,
are you
someone
talking
just
to?
tripped on a banana. That's what I'm laughing about, because of a funny thing.
Yeah, or even
Uh,
the romantic comedies where sometimes they're in a scene where it's supposed to be hot and heavy, but then he turns around or looks to the side and he sees that the dog is staring at them, and then that's just
oh,
like a funny moment because you're like,
mhm.
I have dogs.
And those moments are great as a narrator, because you're like, you get into the scene and you're talking like this, and you're breathing, and then there's a funny moment, and that's like it's a clocked as a as a performer. It's like, oh right, this is a human. I've gone too far into Gravel Boy, and I need to like check back into like, and then he went, and then he looked at his dog, and then his dog looked at him, and they nodded, and then he continued. But there's these little human moments
Yeah,
that like, okay, I have to remember to keep that humanity in those scenes, at least
yeah,
a little bit,
just a little bit. Yeah,
just a scotch.
it'd be funny to have a book where the hero and their pet can talk to each other and have
Oh,
that scene happen.
yeah. I'm sure it's out there. I've seen titles for some
Oh,
crooked,
absolutely.
crazy romance
Yeah,
novels, and
that's
so
true.
there has to be one where there's like a telepathic dog connection.
Yeah, so if there is, guys, and you've read it or listened to it, please let us know.
Yeah,
We'll pick it
please
up
let
and
us
figure it
all
out.
know. Yeah, that's a whole episode, just
Yeah,
digesting it and talking
yeah.
about it.
We're like, oh my God.
I did in the paranormal mystery, the female protagonist can talk to animals, and the vampire is like gets hip to it like halfway through, and it's like, oh shit, your dog's been telling you all the stuff that I do in your apartment when you're not there.
Yes,
Oh,
yes, he has.
you gotta walk out. You gotta watch out for dogs. They're always watching. I don't think
Yeah,
there's anything going on in my dog's head, but he is watching.
yeah. You'd be surprised. I mean, as an owner of four, sometimes they look at me and then they look at him and then they look back at me and I'm like, I'm telling you, I don't know either sometimes. I'll get you.
That's right. What's that meme that's going around? Like, your dog's not going to kill you, but there's a 1% chance.
Yes.
There's always that 1% chance that they're plotting your murder.
Yeah. Add cats to the mix and you're going, oh yeah, that's more than a high propriety,
Oh my gosh,
probability.
cats do the darndest things. I've heard.
Yeah.
I had a friend who was telling me when they started dating, and it was the female partner in the relationship was her cat, and when the guy was sleeping over, the cat would the cat the cat would hang out on the armoire and like wait till they fell asleep. And if he was laying, on his back, the cat would jump down and pounce on his crotch in the middle of the night. Just and like repeatedly would do this.
Oh
And
my
that is how
goodness.
and they're very happily together still. And but it's that story
Yeah.
makes me cackle.
Yes.
Cats are evil.
They're particular. They have their moments. Yeah.
I'm allergic to cats, so
Oh.
I've never had cats in my life.
Oh. If you're lucky, you get some that are very lovey-dovey, and then there's also ones that are your typical meme. So it happens. So when you're not busy working and getting more and more books and getting fully booked, what do you do for fun?
I fish. I'm a fisherman. I grew up outside of Philadelphia in the suburbs. So I grew up like near cornfields and creeks, and I spend my days fishing with my dad. So I love fishing for bass, fishing for anything. I'll do that. My wife is gracious enough to join me, and she likes it too now. And I like Dungeons and Dragons. I dungeon mastered D&D games for friends. I love fantasy. I just love it so much. And then I live in New York City, so I bike around a lot. The city's beautiful in the summer. It's just starting to get nice outside. So I put the dog in this little like doggy backpack that I have, put him on my back, and we'll go for a bike ride. And we go for hikes a lot. My wife and I love the outdoors, so we'll drive up to the Hudson Valley and go for a day hike as often as we possibly can.
That's so nice. Living in
Yeah.
Florida with humidity is summer starting, we don't go outside unless we're
Really?
going to the
It's that
beach or
bad?
pool. Yeah.
Oh, but if I could just walk to the beach, I'd be happy.
I have in either direction, either east or west, I can hit a beach in about 45
What?
minutes to an hour. Yeah.
That is crazy to me. Oh,
Yeah.
there's like, as a New Yorker, I've been in this city for 15 years now. And like, we've been together for 10 years. We're thinking about the future and where we want to go and what we want to do. And, we're so deeply embedded in the city. Like, we don't want to go anywhere.
Yeah.
But like my wife's from upstate. She loves swimming in a lake. I could lay on a beach for 8 hours every day of my life and be very, very happy. So we'll see where we end up. But the Hudson River is not really swimmable. And I love Coney Island, but I've you don't want to open your mouth in the water.
Yeah. But I
when you're out in
mean,
Coney.
even here in quote unquote paradise as well. I mean, we have sharks and we have jellyfishes and we
Ooh, don't
have
get me started on
people.
sharks.
So yeah, I mean, Smyrna Beach is infamously known for the shark attacks. So there's always something, aside from our politics issues. But yeah, I mean, it's always something. I mean, no matter where you go, I think it's just finding the happiest medium. Like,
Exactly.
yeah,
And
finding that one place.
whenever we go, I'm deathly afraid of sharks. I'll put that out into the universe because I'm just so afraid of them. I grew up on Shark Week, and my wife loves swimming. So when we get to the beach,
Yep.
her first thing, she just goes right out and goes as far as she can to swim, and I'm like on the shore, just like shaking. I'm like, "Hey, you okay? You see anything? You see any shadows?" I'm watching for shadows. I like
Fins.
I'm like fins to the left, fins to the right. Jimmy Buffett's playing in my head. I'm like, all right, I'm ready. I'm ready to save her life if it happens. And of course, it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Knock wood.
Yeah. Again, it's just all these. It's a lot. There's little things that when you grow up in certain areas, you get taught from the very beginning.
Yes.
So we've Miami born and raised, so we know about the the alligators and the crocodiles and in canals and lakes, and then we go into the water if it's jellyfish season or not and all that.
It's like the Australia of America.
Yeah,
Everyone wants to just take
there's
it
always
out.
something. Yeah, so just got to find the good stuff.
We just had snapping turtles growing up.
Yeah,
They're watch your toes in creeks.
Yep.
Watch those toes.
Yeah. So it's always something, as long as you find the good in it, and you have what you can enjoy is always a good thing, at least within driving distance. So
exactly. Well, that's what's so nice about New York is that you have the Hudson Valley. It's got beautiful hiking. The river's there. We can drive out to any of the beaches on Long Island. We can drive out. There's some beautiful parts of North Jersey. We're lucky where we're sort of situated.
Yeah. Yeah, and you guys can go to different states a little bit closer on together because the states are smaller. I'm still driving 6 hours and I'm still in Florida. So
yes, the drive does get long down there.
Yeah. And so it still depends. It's the length of duration is on where you start. But yeah, I mean, I'm 6 hours in any direction. I'm still in the States. And I'm in Orlando. So I'm in the middle.
Smack in the middle.
Yeah, so it works out. What's your favorite holiday and why?
Oh man, what is my favorite holiday? That's a tough one. I am notorious in this house for I begin singing Christmas tunes too early. This is what I get in trouble for every year. I'm not allowed to sing Christmas tunes until after Thanksgiving. That's the rule. That's the house
Okay.
rule. But I just get so pumped. I just love my Charlie Brown Christmas. I love it. I love it. I love it. It's really any holiday where I can eat.
Okay.
My mom, she makes so much food. I grew up just eating like, I'd come home from college and she'd make me like 2 quiches and a lasagna, and I would be home for 3 days and I'd eat it all. So I'm like, I love eating. I love any holiday where we can get together and just make a big old meal, whether that's 4th of July, like we go upstate and we barbecue, and I can sit by the grill for a couple hours and like be very, very content about that. So yeah, let's put 4th of July up there because now I'm thinking of
What's
hot
coming
dogs
up
and
next?
burgers. Yeah, yep,
Yeah, we have Memorial Day weekend, I think, coming up May 30th or 31st, something like that, that
Oh,
weekend.
that's true.
Yeah. And then we have the next one will be 4th of July. So yeah.
Yeah, just an excuse to eat is often as
Hmm.
I love cooking. I live in my kitchen. We cook almost every night, and so I love an
What's your
excuse to
specialty?
my specialty. I make
Yeah.
bread. I make bread.
Nice.
I make focaccia bread. I make some pretty good dinner rolls. I make a pretty good challah bread. Um,
Nice.
yeah, I like. It's just the house smells so good when
Yeah.
baking bread. It's a smell that lingers, and it's like no one doesn't like the smell of bread. Some people cilantro, but sometimes people garlic. It's like, ooh, it's too much. But ooh, if there's bread, people are like, what's
Yep.
going on in here?
Yeah, you must drive your neighbors crazy with the
No, they're great.
smell.
Are you kidding me? The smells in my neighborhood, the food smells so good in my hallway. It always smells
They're like,
delicious.
have they
Someone's
knocked
always
on your
cooking
door and
good.
say, "Can I place an order?"
Every now and then, I'll make too much bread and I'll give it to my neighbor, and she
Yeah.
makes this amazing flan, which she gives to us. We
Nice.
got great neighbors up here.
That's good. I
Yeah,
did that too
it's
when I was in culinary school. We were exchange
you went to
foods.
culinary school? Oh,
Yeah.
I am talking about cooking, and you really know what you're doing.
I find it
Jeez.
fascinating. When I took that bread class, we had an entire course on bread making, and I'm like, we just have to sit here and wait. And so
Yeah,
for
it's
it to
just waiting.
rise and kneading and making sure the yeast was the right way. And I'm like, why
Uh-huh.
didn't it rise? So how was your yeast? Fuck.
Yeah. But that's
Yeah.
what's so nice when I'm like in the booth for 6 hours. I can set the the dough in the
Yes, that's
morning and
true.
let it rise through the day and have a nice loaf for dinner time.
Nice. Yeah. It's fun. I like cooking and baking and stuff like that, but that's definitely something that you just walk by and you smell it and you gain like 15 pounds. So
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
My wife's like, you can only have 2 loaves of bread in this house at a time,
Yes.
max.
Yeah.
Like, all right, fair,
Fair enough.
fair.
Got it. Okay.
Got it.
You were mentioning singing before, and I know that you've also done theater and you officially sing and you've
I
gotten,
do.
yeah. But when a song comes up, it doesn't matter where you're at, whether it's at groceries or if you hear it somewhere in public, or even in, when you're in a car or a bus, that when it comes on, you're automatically singing along. What is that song?
Oh my gosh. Well, I have a few. There's a few. I'm a sucker for Sia. It is. It started as a guilty pleasure, and then it was not so guilty anymore. If Chandelier comes on, if Unstoppable comes on, I am like I full live my dreams. In fact, to the point where on our wedding, it was towards the end of the night, and I had had a few adult beverages, and my wife orchestrated a moment with the DJ to put on Sia and have everybody lift me up and crowd surf me around the dance floor. And that was when I peaked. I think everything is going to be downhill from that moment, because
Okay.
that was really like a peak moment for me.
That's awesome. I
But
love your wife.
she's the best. She's the shit. She's so cool. But yeah, those two, yeah, that and Space Oddity. That was my karaoke song always, and all my college friends are like, amazing. You go to school for musical theater, and everyone sings so well. You go out to karaoke, and everyone's like, nails the crap out of songs, and I would always go up there and just do a full performance piece to Space Oddity. I would walk around, counting down, lifting off, talking to the bartenders. That
Oh
was
my goodness.
but I've got a very special place in my heart for that song.
Nice. Yeah. One of the reasons why I do ask about this is I like having the songs in my phone. So whenever we get together and hang out, especially in conferences and conventions,
I
I
see what
will
you're doing.
purposely.
I see what you're doing. I see what you're doing. You're sabotaging me, so
I'm
everyone
not
sees the
sabotaging you. I'm
truest
setting you
part
up
of me.
for fun and excitement and memorable moments in a signing and convention.
For me dropping to my knees in a convention center screaming "Sia"
Yeah.
because I have a compulsion to do so.
Yeah.
Oh man,
You
that's
were gonna be
funny.
like, so when's that next event that you're going to?
Cool.
Have
I'm
you signed up?
excited to. No, I'm so excited to go physically to one of these conventions now because I've done APAC twice virtually now, and now honestly through social media, through Instagram and TikTok, I'm starting to like see these narrators and like feel like I know them a little bit because we're putting so much of our lives on so much of like this part of our life, which is a
Yes.
part that I really recognize. Amanda Stribling posted something about like having like 9 cups of water in her booth, and I was dying. I was like, that is me. I was like, my wife calls me the little girl from Signs. I leave
Yes.
water glasses all over the house. There's so many in my booth, and I feel excited to have bypassed that little like, hi, I'm Rob. Nice to meet you. Da, 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 da. We at least, I'll maybe have some common ground with these like incredible narrators that I still feel so starstruck to meet. But we'll see. I mean, this seems like everyone has so much fun at them.
Oh no, it's great. It's a blast. And the narrators are starting to come out more and more now. And some of the events have been specifically adding narrators because it's technically almost like a different audience, even though we're all readers. But
Yeah.
because of the audiobook aspect of it, they're getting an entire new, people going to these things. And there's actually one that's specifically just for audiobook lovers in Chicago happening in September. I'll send you the info so you can
Yeah,
see you
please.
can
You'll
test
send
that.
me like if you have a list of like all the
Yeah,
conventions that have, I would love it because I don't know where to start
start.
looking for them all. I know the APAC. I know VO Atlanta just happened, but
Yeah, those are more like workshops and things for you guys to learn new tricks and trips and improve on stuff. This is where you get to hang out with the authors and the fans and get all girl crushing on you and all that fun
that
stuff. I want you to go, but I want you to bring your wife because your wife and I are going to have a drinking game of
oh boy.
things like when the ladies approach you for a book, for you to sign a book that you've narrated, and what it is that they're bringing you to sign is going to be part of that game.
Oh wow. I can't wait till I have enough books where there's some fun ones to
Oh
have
yeah.
that with.
I mean, the audience is very creative and fun. So yeah, but definitely your wife has to come because I have to hang out with her and
Oh yeah,
and
she'll
and
pout. She's fun.
yeah, for sure. You work with words all day long
Yes.
and you say a bunch of different ones too because of the genres that you write. So what
Mhm.
is your favorite word? Not to be confused with your favorite curse word because that's the second part of the question.
That's very fair. I mean, the word voluptuous, I think, is a word that I've always really liked. I think it uses the tongue, it uses the whole mouth. It really like your tongue goes on a wave, a whole journey in there. And of course, it's used a lot in romance. So I do like saying that word. What are some other specific words that you asked me this question, what is my favorite word? But my brain is only thinking of the words that romance authors focus in on to describe the sweeter parts of the human body that are like not the normal words. Like this is the fun word that I'm going to use to describe this part of the human body, and I'm going to use it 150 times,
Oh,
and it is
goodness.
wild. And those are the words. That's when I really crack up because I'm like, of course you can't just say this one word 100 times. You have to find another fun way to say it. But that's all I'm thinking about are those words. These like top 5 words. Like, wow, I would never have used that word to describe this. But I guess if you're looking at it from a sort of engineering architectural standpoint, yeah, that would make sense to describe that.
Yeah, and we as listeners have the words where like we do not want to hear certain words
Oh,
or
really?
read them. Oh yeah, there's certain words that we're like, nope, no, thank you.
I can,
Doesn't matter.
I can understand that. I now have the perspective where I can understand that.
Yeah. So what's your favorite curse word?
Oh man, probably horse shit. I
Ah,
say horse shit all the time because I stub my toe. It's like, fuck, horse shit. And yeah, and that sounds weird to just go into it and say it like that.
yeah.
I guess. Or holy fuck.
Yeah.
I'm a very clumsy person around the house, so I'm always Lizzie will just hear like, oh fuck, horse shit. They're like, what? where you're going. Use your eyes.
Yeah, and the furniture piece has not changed or moved since we moved in here.
We've been in this apartment for 8 years. But it's the dog toys. I'll step on the hard dog, the branch replica dog toy that is
Oh my goodness.
meant to puncture men's feet across the
Yeah.
world.
That is true. Yeah. That and
Yeah.
or tripping over the dog sometimes is another thing.
Oh, this is that'll get you too. That'll
Yeah,
get you.
that definitely
Rudy
will.
lets me know if I trip over him. He's like, "What the fuck, Dad? Why are you doing that?" He gives me this sad face. I'm like, "Oh, don't give me this sad face, man. Come on, it was an accident. All right, let me give you a half a pound of pepperoni. Okay, all right. Are we
Yeah.
good?
Yeah.
We're
Okay,
good?
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, you should do some videos with him and his
I-
voice when he's looking at you.
you're not the first person to ask that, and
We love dog videos, period. Add your voice to it. Come on.
that's fair. Well, I tried. I was like, all right, I'll make a little Rudy video because I've got roughly 300,000 hours of Rudy on my phone, and I made this little compilation, and I just was having a gas in the booth. I was making all these voices, and I waste like an hour of the day, and I I go have lunch, and I come back and I watch it, and I'm like, oh, this is utter nonsense. I can't post this. This is nonsense. So I didn't post it. But since you brought it up, maybe I'll make an addendum.
Okay.
Because I got to give him a voice. I'm like,
Yeah.
what's his voice?
I'll send you some samples of where I've seen them done.
Cool.
And some little clips here and there. They're just fun kind of things. And that way you kind of have an idea
That's
of
great.
it doesn't sound as bad. I mean, it may sound bad, but when you see it with the video, you're like, oh, it's fucking hilarious. So
I mean, like, I'm always projecting what I think he's thinking constantly out loud to myself.
absolutely.
You ever do that where you just you say the words to your dog that you think they're thinking to you?
I
It's a
have an
real
entire
weird
conversation.
conundrum.
Yeah, where I'm like,
Yeah,
no,
a
really,
full-
stop that. No, stop.
Oh, you're telling me to do this? Well, I'm telling you to do that. Oh, you don't
Yes.
like it when I do that because of this?
Yeah.
Well, I'm telling you to do that.
Exactly.
Meanwhile,
So
they
cut
just
it
want
out.
to go outside.
Exactly. That's what it's like. One day we'll have that technology, and they're gonna be like, "You finally understand?" I'm like, yeah, sorry.
That would be crazy if we ever actually got to that point where we could understand animals' thoughts. That would be
Mhm.
truly nuts.
Yeah, especially like when they have seen you do it. They're like, next time, just thrust your hips a little. No, anyways.
I'm worried. Or the squirrel's like, "Hey, I'm a squirrel. I've been outside your window for a couple months. I just got a couple pointers from you. I got a great point of view from up here."
Yeah, the face that she was making looks like she really enjoyed that one. So do it again.
Wait, did we just develop a new genre, a new romance subgenre?
Maybe.
Holy shit! I got a great idea. You can come in on the ground floor.
Yeah, perfect. Before we go, can you tell us what you're currently working on, and what's coming up next for you that you can share?
Oh, that I can share. Okay.
Yeah, I always put
I
that
can't share the
caveat.
romances. What's that? Let me get this book. Where's the schedule? There's a really big fantasy that's coming up, which I'm really, really excited for. It's called, what is it? The Dark That Dwells. I found this couple they actually found me through Instagram. They're a writing couple, and they have this big, it's gonna be like a 17-hour fantasy, but they are this is clearly like a passion for them, this story. They've been working on it for a while, and they sent me these beautiful picture collages for these characters and this like wonderful world building backstory. And like, I'm so thrilled to buy. I have a fair amount of time set aside to work on this book because I think it's gonna need that extra attention to
Lovin'.
get these. Yeah, because it's multiple perspectives, and it's celestial sci-fi, so it's up in the world, it's up in space, and so it's going to be a lot of laying the groundwork and making sure that the audience understands what's going on. I haven't gotten my hands on the manuscript yet, but I'm so pumped just because of like the passion that they've showed me so far, how pumped they are about this project. It's just making me so excited to work on it.
Sounds like fun. I like it when you guys and the authors are excited about something that's coming up. It makes us want to
Yeah.
more.
Yeah, it's exciting. And then like right after that, I have the sixth book in this young adult fantasy, which is the last book that he's written. And so the books after that are all going to be written post. So we've been like chatting, and we've got such a great rapport, this author and I, and he's like, all right, I gotta write the next one now. But I was like, all right, it's gonna be great. We're gonna rock it out, man. It's gonna be awesome. So that's what's on the docket for me. I'm pumped about. That's July.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing. And I'm sure that we'll see more stuff come through in your TikToks and your Instagram. That's what's coming up.
Yes,
So yeah.
yes. I've got to be better about like posting about the releases. That's the next the next ticker on my to-do list is
Yeah.
getting to promote a little bit more in that way.
Yeah, and it all works into it with each other. So you're good there.
Cool.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Rob, for being a part of this year's Audiobook Loving Series. It's been a blast.
The pleasure is truly mine. This has been a lovely hour full of laughs, and getting for me to get to learn a little bit about like the other side of the industry and how the
Mhm.
readers appreciate things. It's really nice. So thank you so much for having me on here.
Absolutely. And everyone, thank you for hanging out with us today. And we hope you've enjoyed this chat as well as the series. Make sure to follow him on social media, and I will be giving you all those links so you don't have to go hunting for them. And they will be over at Audiobook Lovin Series landing page at Viviana Enchantress of Books. And until next time, happy listening.
Thank you for joining us in the Audiobook Lovin Series, hosted by Viviana, Enchantress of Books. We hope you have enjoyed this episode, as well as the series. We've included audio samples of our guests' work within the post for you to check out. Please make sure to visit the main page, link within the post, to learn more about the series, the authors, and the narrators. Please consider leaving a review wherever you listen to the series if you enjoyed today's episode. Make sure to follow us on our social media platforms and subscribe to the Viviana Enchantress of Books newsletter. Until next time, happy listening. Audiobook Lovin hopes you've enjoyed this program.